nutritionist here in Wisconsin. I practice out of Brookfield, but we'll be moving to New Berlin very soon. So we're going to talk about what is digestion. What are prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes? There seems to be a lot of misinformation that's floating around, but also some good information, and I just want to clarify a lot of that for us today. And I want to give you a little bit on my background. So coming into nutrition was pretty much a difficult task for me. I grew up here in Wisconsin and had the typical mom that thought everything should be done in 5 minutes. So she was a convenience cook, but she was also came from a family of 10 children, so her mother didn't know any better, so we don't criticize for that. And so I developed fibromyalgia and the whole laundry list of diseases attached to that and labels. And so basically what happened, I became very debilitated, couldn't walk, sit, or stand more than 20 minutes. Going grocery shopping was like torture to me, and just trying to function as a human being. And so one day I'm a very big traveler, I happened to be in Croatia of all places, and I was with a boatload of doctors, nurses, and personal trainers, and I said I could do something one day, and they're like, what? And so one of them kind of took me under his wing and gave me an itinerary of what to do. Basically, it was my itinerary, just flipped around and he wrote a scratch a diet on there, but he basically said, whatever I eat, you eat, whatever I do, you do, and you will not be cheating. And I'm like, okay. So it worked. Within 12 days of the trip, I had lost 12 pounds. I felt phenomenal. I was actually able to go and participate in everything that everybody was doing. I could go dancing, which was something that was horrifying for me, being that I actually took ballroom lessons and stuff, and if I couldn't go out and dance, I was pretty sad because I'd wake up and fall out of bed the next day. I couldn't even walk. So this guy actually helped me out, and I went to study clinical nutrition first because that seemed to be the key piece in fibromyalgia and digestion. And then once I got past that, I found Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a holistic Indian system. So it's native to India, and then basically it's always nutrition first, and we look at the diet, the stomach, and then we go into all the fun therapies. We do lots and lots of hot oil therapies, herbal therapies, but I try not to move too many people into the actual herbals because then I become just like the Western doctors. And so being that our main focus is digestion, we're going to talk about that and break it down. And so when I look at digestion, you can look at all the chemicals and the organs and stuff that all have to work synergistically together, but the biggest part of it is that I want you to go back to kindergarten or 3rd grade and picture a campfire. All of us from Wisconsin should be able to picture a campfire, at one time or another in our life. And so when we think about, let's say 4 or 5 logs, and we got this beautiful, nice little glow going up, and nice little ambers at the bottom, that is how your digestion should look or feel. It should have this nice little roar, but not like singeing everything on top of you, which would be acid and heartburn, or it shouldn't be like so smoldered and just absolutely like sluggish, where it's kind of just swimming in there. And so we want this perfect little blend of digestion so that everything can run on optimal levels. So when we look at digestion, we want to picture the top half of your stomach. That's where the food is going to head first. And that's where, it's just basically going to break it down one more step. So then when it falls to the second half of the stomach, that's where it breaks it down maybe 2 or 3 times smaller. And so what happens is when we eat lunch, or let's go to breakfast. We eat breakfast at 6 a.m. in the morning. We eat a very good healthy breakfast, whole grains, some nuts and seeds, and nice oil and stuff like that. So what happens is in the first half of our digestion, so the first 2 hours, it's still stuck in that top half of the stomach. Some people, it may be even longer. Depends how long their digestion actually takes. So if you're a person that, you kind of feel a little groggy yet, after 2 or 3 hours, you're probably still stuck in that first half of the stomach. Where we have other people on the opposite end of the spectrum, they like burn their food. They incinerate it as soon as it touches their tongue or something, But that's also an imbalance of digestion. And so when we have the two opposite extremes, we have to compensate for that. So let's say, nowadays all of this 6 meals a day is a big thing, right? So how we debunk that, in Ayurveda it's only 3 times a day we eat. We eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That is it. There's no snacking, there's no extra 2 meals or anything like that, because of the way your digestion actually functions. So if I'm going to eat at 6 o'clock in the morning and I had this big, healthy, beautiful meal, now let's say it's 10 o'clock and everybody else in the office is eating. You're like, oh, maybe I should have something, And so what happens, you drop that in, start chewing it, it goes to the top half of the stomach. By now, you should have shifted to the second half of the stomach. So the stomach's working still on, it's still on the clock. So what happens is that top half, now all the energy just shot right back up there instead of the second half of the digestion. Because now it's like, ooh, new stuff. Your stomach has ADD. So it's like, oh, gotta work on this. Now what's happening down here? Fermentation, bubbles, gas, indigestion. That's where all this comes from, distension. Because now it doesn't know what to do. It's like, oh, wait, I can't make up my mind. So we have to work with it. So when it actually does meet each other, that's, kind of when your stomach settles down and you start going throughout the day. So what I would like you to kind of think about is, what happens when we're actually doing all this overeating in a sense. So we're taxing our cardiovascular system over a period of time because your body's working all day long. We're never giving it a break besides maybe the 6 to 8 hours that we're sleeping. But your body's still burning stuff at that time. So eventually we're going to develop cardio problems when we consume 6 to 8 meals a day. And so also we want to think about sugar burning versus fat burning. And sugar doesn't mean that I can eat cupcakes and cookies and snacks all day. Sugar burning is basically using the fuel that comes into your body. That's sugar according to the body and the cells. So whether I eat really, really healthy or I eat garbage, it's still sugar burning. And basically how we get into fat burning is by allowing 4 hours of digestion. That's it. As soon as we allow 4 hours to pass, we're now into fat burning mode. So when you take that example of eating at 6 a.m., waiting, so I have to wait till 10 o'clock to have some food. And that's it. Now I slid into fat burning mode. I'm using the storage that's inside of my body versus the sugar, just burning up whatever is going inside of my mouth. And so when we keep that in mind, then our digestion starts picking up and the metabolism starts going up. So we want to keep that at the forefront of our mind. We want to be in fat burning mode, not sugar burning mode. And that doesn't matter if you're overweight, underweight, whatever. We always want to just use up whatever's going into our mouth. So that's the very, very basics of digestion. And then what happens is when all of us have an imbalance to our digestion, we need a little bit of supplementation, because what's happened in America is we've become over-sterilized. So we've got pasteurization, all these other things that are happening right now, and dairy is the biggest one, being that we're in the dairy state. It's illegal to sell raw dairy here. So we have pasteurized everything imaginable. And so what happens is we become a very sterile environment, and that includes our stomach, because if we're not being fed the proper flora, bacteria, and enzymes, now our body can't work, because we have the hydrochloric acid, and that's basically what kind of does that mushing and breaking down, but we have enzymes and flora and bacteria that also facilitate this, and they're proteins inside of our body that have a very specific job to break down